welcome everyone here to Smash Evening Show right here on Smash FM here on a Tuesday here in Melbourne. Of course, let's go across to our friends over in the US, and we're heading to sunny California, to especially to Los Angeles, and speak with a music artist over there. Of course, her name is Zoe Moss. She joins us right now. Thanks, Zoe, for joining us.
Hi, Will. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, tell us a bit about last year for you, up in 2023.
Sure. So I am a songwriter and artist in Los Angeles, and last year was a pretty busy year for me. I worked on some projects in the pop sphere with some artists that I really admire, look up to. I also started to work in some of the sync music and K-pop music that I've really, my goal was to kind of transition into doing just more genres and just more sounds. And so that's what I really focused on last year, and wrote dozens and dozens of different songs for those projects. And luckily for the beginning of 2024, starting to see some of them see the light, get some release dates, and just have some partnerships coming together that I'm really excited about. So that's a little bit of what my year has looked like last year and what it's looking like so far.
What's the goal for 2024? Have you got any releases coming out this year?
Yeah, I'm working with this great artist, Jillian Rossi, and I've done 2 singles for her, one that should be coming out this year and one that came out last year. I'm working with some amazing K-pop artists as well, and I can't quite announce the artist just yet, but there should be a single coming out in 2024 that I'm really excited about. It's one of a solo singer from a relatively well-known, kind of infamous K-pop girl group. So that's something that I'm super excited about, as well as I've done a lot of different collaborations with artists in the pop sound, things that I'm waiting as well to kind of see when release dates will hit for that. And it's been a really busy year. The last year was incredibly just fruitful and really creatively satisfying. So I'm really looking forward to see, like, of all the work we put in last year, what's going to come of it for this year for release dates.
Do you have any performances coming up in the next couple months?
So I haven't been performing as much as I had in the past. I really like being behind the scenes and working with other writers and artists, but I've done a couple features in dance that could be coming out. And in Los Angeles, I have a showcase that I should be taking part in March with, and it's through my PRO BMI. So that'll be really fun. I've worked with them for several years now, since about 2015. So I'm pretty excited to take part in their showcase that happens in Los Angeles, because it'll be the first time I've done that.
Considering of what you just mentioned, so how's it been like doing the backstage side of things instead of being doing it solo?
Totally. So I started off in New York, where I'm from New York. My family's from New York, and I went to school for music and found a mentor there. And I learned about the world of publishing through that mentor. I thought, oh, to be in the music industry, you had to be an artist. And as I studied under my mentor, I realized, oh, there's a whole world where you can write with the artist and write for the artist. And I fell in love with that process. And I got my first cut while I was still in school. My first cut is like my first release. And the song went top 20 on Billboard. And that kind of started my career as a writer. And I've been doing it now for about 8 years, back and forth from New York and LA. Now I'm full-time in Los Angeles. And it's been up and down. There's a lot of times where you don't have releases and you wait a really long time and there's politics involved, but then the highs outweigh that tenfold. So I'm going on, I guess, almost a decade now of being a writer, and I still really am in love with it. So that's a little bit of the background. I mean, there's so many other details in between then, but
Any highlights throughout your songwriting journey?
yeah, yes. I guess my highlights, definitely seeing artists go on tour and sing lyrics back that I helped create has always been a highlight. Also, just seeing online how much a song can impact a group of fans. And for me, I'm a lyricist. Lyrics mean the most to me. So when I see that a young person really resonates with something that we wrote, that to me is such a career high. And, like, it's great to get accolades, it's great to have awards and things like that. But I think really seeing the firsthand impact your song makes is what we do it for.
You mentioned before that you're not performing as much as you have done in the past. Do you still miss it, like doing things solo regarding to performing instead of actually songwriting for others?
Sure. I think we all started off on some level as an artist who envisions ourselves wanting to be on stage or wanting to sing our songs for a crowd. I would say most people start off that way. And for me, there's still a bit of that pull where, maybe someday in the future, I'll release a project myself, something I'm really proud of. But also, it has to be the right selections of songs, and the songs really have to feel like they're me, not for somebody else. So I think I'm really waiting for the right time to then decide if I want to start releasing music myself again.
Any famous artists that you've songwrite for?
Yeah, I've written with Andy Grammer, Tate McRae. I've done demos and pitches for like everyone all over the map. I've worked with Mothica. I've worked with people in the Martin Garrix camp, like Brooks and Mike Williams, and people on Spinnin' Records. And those are just to kind of name a few.
Is there one place that you would love to either perform or at least go and see your songwriting at work? Is there one place that you love to? Because you are from the Big Apple, and now you've gone over to Hollywood.
Sure. I mean, I think it's the most fun to see an artist in a smaller capacity venue. Anything from like 100 to 200 people to 5,000 people. Like I love going home and going to Irving Plaza or Terminal 5 or Baby's All Right. And I went to the Greek for the first time in Los Angeles, which was really interesting to kind of see which artists can pull that amount of people. But for me, I'm still a big fan of like about 5,000 cap venue.
The reason I asked that is because I guess when I have most music artists from the US on the show, they mention Madison Square Garden, which is the world's most famous arena where all the famous artists have performed. Is that something you want to do eventually?
I don't think it's really something that I see myself doing, but I absolutely see myself going and watching something that I wrote be performed there. 100%. Hopefully backstage or, in the friends and family section.
Yeah. What inspires you to write music?
I think a way of expressing emotions that otherwise are hard to access or hard to communicate in the everyday life. I think it's really cathartic to make art, whether it's music or visual or film. I think we're all just trying to connect and express ourselves in the right way. So I think for me, I started so young writing lyrics and then writing melodies to my lyrics. And I think I was 5 or 6 years old. So for me, it's always been like a secondhand way of expressing myself.
Continuing on from that question, what does the music industry mean to you?
I think the music industry means to me, it's a platform to finding a bigger scale of getting music heard. I think it offers a tool set that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were doing everything on your own in a vacuum. And it connects people. The industry connects people. It starts conversations. It moves things forward technologically wise. I think there's obviously, like any industry, there's pros and cons, to every aspect of every industry. But I think the music industry has a lot of good to offer, especially to the next generation who wants to get involved.
We mentioned about your future ambitions for this year in 2024. Do you have anything long term for you, Zoe?
Yeah, I think just really working hard at the projects that we're pushing for, like in the pop space, in the pop dance space, in the K-pop space. I really am excited about how much diversifying I'm doing with my writing, and it's always so much fun to see the reactions, not only from fans but also from your peers, your industry peers. So I'm just very excited for some of the things that I've been working on for the last year or two to kind of see the light of day.
Have you had any reactions from your fans down here in Australia?
Well, I started working with an artist actually from Melbourne recently. He's a dance pop artist named Carta. And I also worked with, she's not in Australia, but she's in New Zealand, I believe, Indie Yellick as well. And I haven't been to Australia, but I did have family that was originally from Australia. So it's definitely on my list of places to go and do some writing and see some live music here too. So
for your fans, when are you hoping to come down here to the land down under?
it's a great question. That's a very great question. So I have London and Seoul on my list for this year, but I absolutely would love to add Australia if it makes sense. We'll be halfway there already, so might as well pop down maybe after Seoul.
So you mentioned about you're heading to the UK's capital of in London, and obviously the amazing South Korean city of Seoul. When are you heading over there, and why those two locations?
Seoul has a lot of amazing K-pop music that's being made, amazing pop music. And London as well has an incredible writing scene. They have such interesting hip hop, live sound, dance, just so many interesting artists and writers in both of those cities. So they're on my top list for the end of this year.
Why the move from New York to LA?
Yeah, so Los Angeles has become the mecca of writing pop music in the US. New York, up until about 10 years ago, was kind of the leading forefront of writing, but New York has kind of changed so much as a city. Frankly, it's become harder to make a living as an artist in New York. And so we saw a lot of like a migration of creative people from New York to Los Angeles. And I was kind of one of the last groups of people to leave. And as much as I love New York and am very inspired by New York, there's just so much more to be a part of in Los Angeles.
So what would be your advice to people that should get involved in songwriting if performing is not something they want to do?
Sure. I think it's extremely important to figure out what you bring to a room. If you're a lyricist, if you're an all-around writer with melodies and lyrics and concepts, if you're someone who you think really adds to the energy of the room and can help lead the song, I think it's important to understand your skills and the things that you can work on. And from there, collaboration locally, no matter where you are, is so key. You can also collaborate over Zoom, FaceTime, reaching out to people, not being afraid to just go on Instagram and reach out via DM, direct message to someone, And even to just get coffee and ask for advice is so important. It's all about just really networking and putting your best foot forward, because people, no, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you have to be a likable person to collaborate well. And reaching out to your PRO like BMI, ASCAP, CSAC is very, very helpful when you get to a point where you think you're ready to collaborate on a higher level. They are a great resource. And then also, be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself. You don't need to be a perfectionist to be good at what you do.
So when you songwrite, and I'm always interested in hearing music artists and songwriters, is there any like particular moment or location that inspires you to start writing? Go, oh, actually, that's something I can actually write about.
I don't know if it's a location per se, but when I first came out to LA, I used to love to sit in the lifeguard areas in Venice Beach and do a lot of free writing and thinking. And now I would say when I'm in the room, it's more about the energy of the person. If I'm working with an artist with a specific energy that I can tap into, I think that's what gets me the most creative, because it's my job to kind of be the helper, the therapist, the friend, the older sibling, to kind of lead them to their best song.
Let's finish off with a couple of lighthearted questions. Now, obviously, you're mainly a songwriter, but going back to your performing side of it, have you had any embarrassing moments on stage?
Yes, when I was young, I was singing, I was performing for, I would say, a crowd of about 1,000 people, and I was probably about 10, and I completely forgot the lyrics. And so I repeated the last lyrics that I remembered. And obviously everyone noticed, but they were still, everyone afterwards was still very, very kind about it. But it was definitely my first big mistake as a performer. I'm sure that there are others as well, but it has been a minute since I have fully performed, but there are definitely some. I used to also have a theater background, and there was a time on stage that there was someone who was supposed to do some physical comedy, and he fully tripped on stage where he was supposed to hit a cue and jump, and that was also very noticeable, and it was hard to keep character because it was so, honestly, like alarming and funny at the same time. So I guess a couple of those. Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned theatre just a moment ago. Is that something you want to do as well, or is songwriting your heart and soul now?
I think it'd be really fun to write a show or write a musical someday. But it's not in the 10-year plan, but I guess you never know. But another great way to, use your pen and write something new.
Did you have a pre-performance superstition or ritual when you were performing?
Not too much. I always would review lyrics and sing over and over again right up until I got on stage. I guess that was kind of my only ritual. And I would like to kind of find a back room where no one was in. I'd want to be alone. Kind of the classic.
We'll finish with these last two, which is for everyone that should follow you on the socials. How can I go about, Zoe?
Sure. So I am on Instagram. It's Zoe, Zoe Moss, Moss music. And that's my main source. And then I'm on Spotify as Zoe Moss. And yeah, and you can follow my playlist of song releases on Spotify, as well as find me on Instagram if you want to see what kind of sessions I'm in and what kind of releases I've been working on.
Have you had any messages or fanfare from your fans down in Australia?
Yeah, a little bit. When I used to go through my Spotify stats of who looked and listened to some of my features the most, I definitely would see different places in Australia. I think Sydney was one that popped up the most. So a little bit. I have to keep building on it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Zoe, it is so awesome to have you on the show. Can't wait to see where
Sure.
this year takes you in 2024. And well, we're actually heading over to the US a bit later on in the year, so hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you when we're over in the US later in the year.
Amazing. That would be great. Yes. And thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And that's Zoe Moss to join us. Because as you mentioned, you can definitely check out her music on Spotify. And of course, you can follow her on her socials, which I will post that up as well. There's more on the Smash Evening Show right after this. Don't go away. Here on the 10th year celebration.